I am your host of Across Generations, Tiffany D. Cross, and this is the only place where you will hear three different perspectives from three distinct generations of Black women, and I'm so thrilled to invite you to this conversation. Hi, everybody. I'm Tiffany Cross, and welcome to another episode of Across Generations. And today we're talking about foster care. Now, as of the year 2021, there were nearly 90,000 Black children in foster care. And while we know this is an institution that impacts every child, I did want to highlight the Black children in foster care because of so many issues surrounding Black children being adopted and how Black children end up in foster care. So this is a serious conversation, and I'm so happy to be joined by Tyese Styles. She's a dynamic entrepreneur, speaker, and fierce advocate for foster youth. She is also an activist and has been part of enacting change within the New Jersey legislature, a powerful platform empowering others to overcome adversity and find their own path to success. Now, her story is one of resilience and triumph, making her a vital voice in this conversation about the realities of growing up in foster care and the strength it takes to rise above. I do want to say also, she is a close friend of mine. We've worked together and for what now? I think over 20 years.
Over 20 years, yes.
So a long time. And we also have joining us Tawanna Brown. She's a recent graduate of Seton Hall University with a degree in political science and Africana studies at 21 years old. My kind of girl. She's passionate about her role in advocating for children impacted by the child welfare system. Since the age of 15, she's been using her lived expertise to empower and educate. She's also an activist and has been a part of enacting change as well within the New Jersey legislature regarding the Sibling Bill of Rights. So let's get right into it with these ladies. Thank you both for being here. Tyese, I'm embarrassed to say, as long as we've known each other, I don't actually know your story. So why don't you start by telling us your story?
Okay, well, 1977.
How old are you?
9
9
at that time. And what happened was I got beat up in the house, right? My stepfather beat me. I don't remember all of the details because, you know, your mind protects you. So you forget some things. But I do remember having to go to the hospitals, to Presbyterian Hospital. So we walked over the bridge from the Bronx to Manhattan. We went to the hospital and they started examining me and then started asking questions. He didn't want to answer the questions, so they snatched me out of him and my mother snatched me out of the hospital, and we started walking back home. As we're walking over the bridge, he said, if I had insurance on you, I would throw you over.
You do remember that?
I remember that because that's the first time I prayed. So we walked back to the house.
What did you pray?
I prayed, God, please send someone to get me. So we got back to the apartment. I went to my room. I was scared because I was like, I know he's getting ready to, come for me. About 10 minutes later, somebody knocked on the door. An advocate from the hospital knocked on the door and said, I'm here to check on Tyese. And she understood that I was afraid. She took me out of the house, took me back to the hospital. I lived in the hospital for about 2 weeks. I did school, they had schoolwork, and I lived there for 2 weeks and went into foster care from then. I aged out at 18. So I went to different foster homes. I lived in Brooklyn. I lived in Queens. I lived in Long Island. I lived everywhere. And when you pack up, they don't even tell you why you're leaving. It's just time to go. So I always had a bag. I always had a plastic bag. And wherever I went, that was the next place. And it wasn't even like the foster homes were any better because some foster homes abused me just the same.
Really?
I had one foster mother who, she ran a bath. Well, first of all, my room was outside of the apartment. So you could go up, it was like a brownstone. So you go up the stairs and there's a door to get into the apartment, but there was also an outside room. I guess they made it into a bedroom, but it was outside of the apartment. You understand? So they could lock their doors and I'm just in the stairway, basically. And so she ran a bath and I thought it was for me. So I get in the bath, take a bath. I get out of the bath. She goes in and said, what happened to the water? And I said, oh, I thought you ran the bath for me. And so she threw something at me because I took a bath. You see? So, I could have experienced that at home. It's like, why I'm here experiencing that. Then I had another foster father of family, but the father sexually abused me. Me and his own daughter. So, you know, some things, this is like, you stay home, you get abused, you go out, you get abused. Every foster family I've been with abused me in some kind of way, except my last foster mom. It was just her and me and a few other foster kids. And that's why I say I'm from Queens. Miss Jones, that was the first like stable household I was in, and I got there at 13. And that's where I aged out from. I was there from 13 to 18.
So for 5 years, you have stability.
Yeah. She was strict, but I craved structure.
Of course. Yeah.
So her being strict for me, I was like, this is what it's supposed to feel like. So I didn't buck back on that. I mean, I did teenage things, you know, like turn my clock back when I'm supposed to be on 11. I turned it back to 10 and be like, oh no, my watch says 10. She said, this clock says 11.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I craved structure. So for me, that was good. I always loved school. I always was, you know, into my books and stuff like that. And her making me do that was something I wished I had anyway. So
I feel ashamed that I never knew this story about you. The only way I found out that you grew up in the foster care system is because the concept for this show, I was telling Tyese, is, you know how we were young and you sit around your grandmother's table, and I want to bring that sentiment back from when you're little and you know, have this elder woman taking care of you and your aunts come over. And Tyese said to me, well, I grew up in foster care, so no.
I don't know nothing about that.
Yeah. It was my first time hearing that, and I'm so grateful to you for sharing your story here. And I've always loved you and always been impressed with you. But now, knowing all of this, because you have such an infectious spirit of giving and kindness, and we were just with your grandbabies in Atlanta, and so I'm just so impressed that you survived that, and that God answered your prayers and delivered you from a situation where you were being hurt. I want to bring you in the conversation before I boohoo cry over here with Tyese, because that is just a heartbreaking story. And I'm thinking about the nearly 90,000 Black children, but the hundreds of thousands of innocent children who could be facing similar circumstances. So tell me your story.
So my story, I've always had child protective services in my life from the time that I can remember, for my siblings. And I was always like, kind of like the norm, that somebody was going to check in. How are you doing? And then you get the whole rundown. You're fine. Nothing happened to you. You fell, you hit your head. But that started to become like continuous. And it wasn't until my father moved us away from our family. And at this time, I was about 9 years old. And he moved us about like 45 minutes away from all of our family and everything. And that's when the abuse just got it was consistent, like almost every day. And it became worse. And it got to the point where it was like every day, it was like we didn't know if that was going to be our last. And as children, I was confused, but I also have 4 younger siblings. So they looked at me as almost like their parental figure. But as a 9-year-old girl, I don't even know what to do myself. Right. So I found myself like kind of running away to school as my safety net. I used to try to get involved in everything. So whether it was dance, cheerleading, if it was bothering the teachers all hours of the day, because I was running away from being home. But it got to the point where my father just became very aggressive. And it was one of those things where you didn't know if it was going to be a great day. You didn't know if it was like going to be a okay day or if it was just going to be really bad. So I would say the last couple of months that I was with my biological parents, the beatings were extremely bad. Physical beatings, mental, emotional. I also experienced molestation growing up. So it was just a lot of things that I was trying to run away from, but also trying to seek help, but I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what that outlook was. So I blame my biological mother a lot because I just couldn't understand, like, as a mother, how could you allow your children to be put through so much harm? And it was one of those things where one day I just made the phone call. I called 911. And I remember being in the closet and I remember just crying and crying and crying. And my sisters locked the door so that way my parents couldn't get in. And I called and I was like, you guys need to come to the house. He's beating us. And then that same day, the phone cord line got cut. And from there, they sent out investigators. They came to the house. But at this point, we had a number of open cases. So it was to the point where they did their check. They looked around and they were like, okay, everything is fine. So at that point, I just felt hopeless because I'm like, how many times do I have to call, or does a teacher have to report that they've seen a bruise or that something is not right with these children before somebody actually steps in? So that's where a lot of my resentment for the child welfare system started to come in later too. But it wasn't to the point where I just was very persistent. And I will never forget the day that I called my grandmother and I was just like, hey, can you pick up me and the girls? We just want to come over and sleep over. But my father never wanted us to sleep over at anyone's house because he had no control of us, what we would say, what we would do. And this day, I remember getting in my grandmother's car and just telling her to drive and crying and crying and crying. My younger siblings are looking confused, and especially the youngest one because she's the closest to our mother and she doesn't know what that aspect is like. She's not understanding right from wrong. Only way that we learned that what we're going through is wrong because I would go to school and I'm like, your parents don't beat you. You're not going through this. So it was one of those things where I was like, just drive. And I just remember just telling her everything and like crying to her. And she was just like, you guys are not leaving. So from there, they opened up a case in the state of New Jersey. They opened up a case. They started doing investigations and everything. And it was just so much for them to like unpack that it was like, there's no way that we're giving you back to your biological parents. But at the time, it was 5 of us entering the child welfare system. So it was unheard of for siblings to stay together. It's usually 2 siblings in this foster home, 2 siblings in this home, and 1 maybe independent living. And that was something that I just fought tooth and nail, that I wanted to stay with my siblings because I did not know life without them. I looked at them like they were my children, even though I was a kid myself. So it was something that I fought my social workers on, I fought my caseworkers on, but I had this one CASA worker, and I love her to death, Marla Higginbotham, and their entire team, where I sat down and for the first time somebody asked me like who I was or what I wanted to be or where I saw myself. So regardless of all the traumas that I had endured and I was trying to come to terms with and all the aspects of violation, because when they do an investigation, you also got to be examined by random people. You have no clothes on. You're stripped of all sense of identity. And sometimes I feel like the foster care system also dehumanizes young people even more. So you're coming from a traumatic situation just to be re-traumatized again. And that aspect of it, I was like, if I'm going to go through it, I'm going to go through it with my siblings. And that plays a huge part in why I was a part of the drafting and creating the Sibling Bill of Rights in New Jersey, because I feel like that shouldn't be something that somebody's fighting for. It should be a right.
Of course.
So that led me into the foster care system. And then within the system, I was very active in going to the courts. I was the young person that they always say, you talk too much, you run your mouth too much. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to use it for good. I'm going to go to the courthouse and tell them what I want and what's going on. So I was very vocal. I testified in my case, had to testify against my parents who were testifying against me at 12 years old. So it was just unheard of territory that I was like continuously embarking on. And my younger siblings looked to me to be the voice for us. So essentially, I would say that worked in a positive for me because I was able to find my voice. So from there, I joined the New Jersey Youth Council. I was a youth council member for 2 years. I became a youth council coach. Aside from that, I started doing full-time advocacy work. So I just started sharing my story. I started leading youth groups, empowering young people, because I feel like the biggest thing that I missed throughout being in care and going through all the things and that lack of stability or normalcy was just understanding that I'm a person and that I'm not a product of the child welfare system, that I'm not another statistic, that everybody that said I couldn't and I wouldn't, that I was going to do just that. So that was something that empowered me, but it's also because I had great people in my life and not necessarily my social workers. Unfortunately, it was my CASA workers that stepped up and took that position. So I did all the things. We ended up getting adopted. I ended up experiencing a failed adoption because I ended up going back into the system, and I recently aged out in January of this year. So I did a few years of independent living. So I've experienced
a lot.
A lot.
When you say, just so I'm aware, CASA worker, that is...
So that's a court-appointed advocate that is a volunteer. So they're in a lot of states. Some states may call them a GAL, but in New Jersey, they're called CASA workers, well, CASA volunteers. So for me, it was my CASA volunteers because they always stuck around. So even the time where my case closed, my CASA volunteer was the one that moved me into college, that bought me my LSAT books when I graduated college, I just actually went to dinner with her not too long ago. So she's always the one that's just been like encouraging me and empowering me to kind of take ownership of my life and my story and not just stay fixated on all the things that went wrong, but what I could do with that. So I really use my platform of advocacy to empower young people, because sometimes it's not even about what I necessarily been through. It's about what I've been through and how I could use that to help you or empower you.
Yeah.
So that's been good.
Yeah. What happened with the failed adoption?
So that was just an instance of just a lack of resources. And it wasn't an instance where it was like, myself and the person that adopted me weren't getting along. It was just one of those things where there weren't enough resources, and they don't talk about that enough within the child welfare system, of how sometimes where either you're a foster youth or you could be a kinship youth or even transition into adoption, that there's not a lot of services or supports after the fact. And it was one of those things where I just wasn't getting along with everybody that was necessarily in the house. And I was doing all the things as a teenager. I was running away, still found myself running, but I was no longer going through like physical abuse. But I was battling a lot mentally and emotionally. So I took it upon myself to kind of just take a leap of faith. I called one of my old caseworkers and asked her what were my options. And that's when she told me about independent living. But in order to do that, I had to go back into the system. So they had to reopen my case. So essentially, I still ended up aging out, even though I was adopted at the age of 16.
Wow. And your siblings you're 21?
Yes.
And your siblings are younger than me. So where are they now?
They're all in the care of my maternal grandmother, yeah.
Okay. And so they're okay?
Yeah, they're all okay. They're fine, yeah.
Thanks to Big Sister for making that call. I just want to, before I bring you back, Tyese, I just want to say to people watching at home, if you are experiencing abuse, physical abuse, if someone's sexually abusing you, tell until someone believes you. If you tell one person and they don't, then keep telling. No good comes from a secret. If someone's telling you to keep it a secret, they do not mean you well. You tell everybody until somebody believes you. And bravo to you for being consistent and taking agency over your own life that far before you should have had to. Tyese, you're 57?
56.
56.
Okay. Oh, Emma. 56.
So you're 56 and you're hearing her,
right?
Who's decades younger than you. Yeah. And she's going through a lot of the same things you went through. And it just makes me say, what will have to happen for this system to change? What will have to happen? We're in a conversation right now in this country around a group of people who call themselves pro-life. And I wonder how many of these pro-life people have adopted. I wonder how many people in this pro-life group or right-wing conservatives have advocated for children. How involved are they when it comes to child welfare? So I hear this and I'm just outraged at this wealthy country, and we leave people like you behind when you were young, and people like this young genius who's talking to me about the LSAT at 21 behind. And you, despite everything, have built this successful career as an entrepreneur. What do you think when you hear her story?
First of all, congratulations, because you've accomplished a lot in such a young age. I aged out at 18. If I would have had to 21, it just would have been. Well, I aged out at 18 during a time where it was just like, okay, see ya, but thank God I had something lined up. I went to the FBI straight from high school because I had to, right? Where was I going to go? I had nothing and nobody. My sister was adopted, but I was left in foster care. So,
what about your foster mother?
She passed. Well, when I could have stayed with her. She probably would have let me stay with her, but I'm grown. I got my job. I'm out of here. I don't have to listen to rules and stuff. She's passed away now. And that's who I call my mom. My biological mom passed away about 10 years ago, and I was able to,
Did you guys
talk
heal?
to her. I healed. I didn't hold any kind of resentment, because my thing was, why am I angry with someone that doesn't even care that I'm angry? Why hold that? Why walk around with that? They didn't care. My stepfather, he didn't care that I was angry. Everything was my fault. I'm the reason why the family wasn't together.
Did she ever try to defend you and protect you from him?
No, because she was abused too. And then when I did mention to her, like, Mom, we got to talk about this. Like one time we was on the phone and I was like, I remember, I grew up in foster care. Like we can't, I have scars on my body that proves that I was beaten.
Yeah.
With extension cords. And she said, nothing ever happened. They brainwashed you. I said, okay. So then I knew that conversation couldn't be had.
Yeah.
There was nothing else to talk about. So, you did. You saved yourself and your sister. So kudos to you for that. You
saved yourself.
Yes,
too.
you did.
I did. I wish that I could have had my sister with me. I wish, but the good thing is that her foster mom and my foster mom allowed us to communicate.
Oh, good.
Because sometimes that doesn't happen. And then she was adopted and her adoptive mom allowed us to communicate.
Good.
So
how old is she?
I'm 56. Dory, right. She's 40, 46.
Okay. So she was 10 years younger than you, experiencing the same abuse in the system.
Talking to her about some of the things that I feel like hers was worse than mine.
Really? Why?
The things that she would tell me that happened to her.
By your stepdad?
No, he never hit her. That was his daughter.
Okay.
But when they can't take one child and not take so I went to foster care the first time. We had to go to court. I testified, whatever. And then later on they asked you, do you want to go back? And I was like, I want to go back home, Mom, right? A year later, we were back in foster care. But about a year and a half, 2 years later, we were back in foster care, and then that was it, right? And then when we got in foster care, they would visit her and not visit me because we were on 2 different days. So Tuesday, I would go to therapy and this and that. And I was supposed to have a visit from my mom, at least my mother. And they wouldn't come see me, but Wednesday they would go see my sister.
Wow.
So it was that. And then they just stopped going and they lost their parental rights. And then she was able to get adopted and I stayed in foster care bouncing around.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
I'm so baffled by this story because you are so giving and loving, and it just hurts my heart to hear this story. It really does. It breaks my heart, Tyese, that you went through that. And I'm just curious how you journeyed through. Because I didn't go through it, and I'm like tearing up for you.
I promise you, at a young age, I read the Bible front to cover. The front to back. I read the Bible every day. And I felt like from the first time I said my prayer, that God got me. And so some of the things I went through, I'm like, okay, I could deal with this, right? Because it's not that. So even when I was being sexually abused in that foster care, in that house in Brooklyn, he was a bus driver. And he was doing it to his own daughter. I could hear it.
And how old were you?
11, maybe.
This is like my heart is breaking
maybe
because
because
if you like Tyese is like the even you, like I wouldn't have this conversation with you and think that you all went through anything like this. And it is, I'm thinking of like the kids who are still going through it.
They're going through it.
It is heartbreaking. And I'm so angry around the conversations we're having in this country. And you all survived despite everything. And I'm the one in tears. And you all are like, we good, girl. We moving through. But I'm just thinking there is somebody right now facing what you all faced.
Yeah. And they're young. They're like
kids, children, innocent.
Yeah. My friend was telling me yesterday, I was talking to him, and his friend is going to get his nephew, he's 5 years old.
Oh my God.
In foster care, he was just put in foster care. Mind you, he has uncles that are in the same town with him, but they took him from the house because the mother was selling her 14-year-old daughter to men.
Oh my God.
And so a 5-year-old baby, that's Allison.
Yes, her grandchildren, I met her grandkids were with us in Atlanta on this other production we were doing, and I'm picturing these girls.
Yeah.
And I just think, how did you, because you're going to go through the rest of your life with these scars, mentally and emotionally. So I wonder what you might share, like what she has as she goes forward in her life, and how you healed and how you journey, what you might share. Yes, please. Y'all can just come give me the tissue because I know I look crazy with these tears. Thank you. And I'm sorry, you guys, because I'm embarrassed that I'm the one in tears and y'all are just stronger than I could ever imagine being. I cry about the things I went through, and it pales in comparison to what you went through, and just knowing how amazing you've always been.
I think for me, I always want to be what I didn't receive. Mm-hmm. It comes so natural for me to love and to give and to be and to, that's natural for me. That's just how I'm made, you know? So experiencing those other things was like so like shocking, like, you know, but then you get used to it because that's life, right? This is what it is, and you got to keep pushing, and that's what it is. It took me a long time to even be comfortable in a hug. And I'm telling you, you know when I got comfortable in a hug?
When?
Samson.
Oh, so I will tell you, Tyese is married to another wonderful person. I was blessed to work with Samson, her husband. You guys met in what, 2005?
Oh my goodness.
306. We all worked at BET News, and Tyese was the booker there. And Samson was a new correspondent at BET, like from the streets. Samson was from the streets. And so he was our street correspondent. And we would, like, Samson would go to Capitol Hill and interview these guys, like, from the streets. And I always thought that y'all were just together and met them, but their love is so beautiful. So I love that the love is just, it's infectious. We all talk about, every time y'all post, it's you know, it really is. And I just love seeing it because we will have Samson on the show. So you guys will have to come back and tune in when we have him, because he has a very compelling story too. He right over there. I'm just trying not to, we love you, Samson. He right over there off camera. But we love you, Samson. But I'm just thinking about what you went through and thinking about what you are going to go through as this accomplished woman. Like, you're a baby, you're 21. And I'm just like, oh, I want to like take this girl and like help you in whatever way. What do you most need in life now as you begin your journey into the world, but also your healing journey from everything you've gone through?
I would say, that is a hard question. Yeah. I would say at this point in my life, as I'm stepping more into my adult years, I've just been trying to give myself grace because I've been blessed. And it's so comforting to hear you say, like, the Lord was really like your saving grace, because that was the same for me. I was blessed to understand my purpose at a very young age. At 15, I found my voice, and I knew why I was put on this earth, and that I was supposed to be a vessel for other young people going through so many different things, but to let them know that you too can get out of it, and you too can and will become something much larger than that. Yeah. Like, I am not a product of my circumstances that I've been through, but I am a product of how I survived it, how I triumphed, and how I've come out on the other side. So I would say because of that, I am very much of an overachiever, and I always feel like I have to do something or I'm not doing enough. But I've been learning to just give myself grace. I graduated from a 4-year university in 3 years with 2 degrees. Amazing. So right from there, I went to a full-time job that I currently work in the city. So it's like been nonstop. So just giving myself grace when I can, and knowing that it's okay to have shortcomings. It's okay to not always be on a high, because I'm a person that always gives. And I'm always pouring, but sometimes you can't pour from an empty cup.
That's right.
And I think that that's something that I had to learn. And I had to learn that no is a full sentence.
Yeah.
Right. That part. I had to learn that too.
Yeah.
Because you always feel you have to say no because.
Right.
No is no.
No is no.
Stop. Full stop.
And that's it.
And that's a learned behavior, though.
Yeah.
You know, because I feel like, I don't want to blame it on growing up in foster care, but we always have to have a reason why we're saying no or yes, right? Yeah, I'm going to do that because such and such and such. Or no, I can't, because, and I have to give you this whole full explanation. I stopped doing that.
Yeah, good.
You know, because like you said, no is a full sentence. I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Or it's not good for me.
And I also had to learn boundaries. And my pastor said it so well. And he said, once you learn to establish boundaries within your life, the only people that are going to get upset is the people that were benefiting when you did not have those boundaries in place. So I learned that as well, that sometimes how people already expect me to like always be there and always show up and always give. Sometimes you tell them no and now they're hurt by it, but you're only hurt because you were benefiting from all the times that I didn't tell you no, and I should have really put myself first.
Yeah.
So I think that that's the one thing that I keep telling myself, like, it's okay to take a mental break. It's okay to just be, and it's okay for me to feel the feels of my emotions.
Right.
Like, I don't sit down and have conversations about what I've been through and all the things I've been through. There's so many things that I still haven't even unpacked because I rather push it to the side of like, I don't even know how I could deal with that. But I also know that that's not healthy because I don't want to continue on in life and have things come up at different times. And it's because it's unhealed trauma. So just trying to like navigate that space.
What do you think when you hear that? I don't want to unpack it. I don't have time. I got to push it to the side.
I do the same.
Still?
Yes. Because a lot of things, your mind protects you from trauma. And so it's a lot of things you may not remember, but it'll come in a flash. Like it could be like I'm doing something and I would just remember something. Like I remember being kicked in my mouth. And it's a flash for me. But you put it away because you're like, wait, did that really happen? Did that? Or am I, but it's your memory coming back. But it's still hard to deal with because now the same person that did these things to me, I am now in touch with again because he's dying of cancer.
Your stepfather?
Yes.
Wow. What is that like? How did you get in touch and why are you?
Because I have a younger sister. Him and my mom had another daughter.
Who was also in foster care.
No.
They grew up.
She never. So
when
in
they
her whole life.
Her,
that's my middle sister.
Okay, I got it.
So they had another child and that they raised. And her whole life, she's been told that I was the reason why the family's not together. So we always had, we had conflict, right? My mom passed away 10 years ago. And when the day she passed and after the cremation, I didn't speak to them again. Because for what?
Yeah.
Right?
I get that.
And then a year ago, or maybe not even a full year, I don't think, she called, my younger sister called to say that he was in the hospital. No. She called to say that they sued the hospital for my mother's death and I had settlement coming. And I was like, okay, well, thank you for including me for that. Because when she died and only pictures in the house was her and my other sister. And they told the officers, yeah, these are our children. I'm standing right here, guys. And they just said those were, yeah, these are our babies. My mother, I'm here. Hello. You know what I mean? So I never spoke to them again. And then when she called me with that, I said, okay, thank you. And then they called me again because I never called to say anything to him. He called and said, you're not going to call and say thank you or nothing or drop dead or nothing. I said, you know what? You're right. Thank you. Because they didn't have to include me, right? I would have never known. But from then, when I found out that he was dying, I was like, okay, because she has no one, right? They are so isolated. I was like, let me be that person. And so I went to see him and I was like, you know what I felt? I felt love for him. I was like, wow, this is crazy. This is different.
And how?
I don't know. Just because he looked so fragile and so sick and it's in the same apartment where all the abuse happened. Yeah. Everything is still there. Everything is still the same.
Yeah.
I used to stand in the corner when they would punish me. I would stand in the corner for like days and not eat while they're sitting at the table eating.
Wow.
And then when I would finally get to eat, I would throw up because I was so...
Yeah, malnourished.
Yeah. All of that, everything is still in the same place. But for me, it's like, I don't feel anger. Because I still feel like I made out better in foster care than I would have if I stayed.
You did. But it shows your ability to love, to not feel anger. I'm angry for you. Like, it's awful. You talked about therapy and you talked about therapy. I'm shook that they had therapy for you at that time. Because at that time, a lot of people, now we begin sentences with my therapist says. But at that time, that was different. Your therapy, I want to hear about your therapy. I just want to hear, like, how is that for you? And when you hear Tyese's testimony at this point about having love for her father, especially, or her stepfather, I should say, like, bridge to me the gap between like the therapy you're going through and how you feel about your father today.
I haven't had any contact with my biological father.
Where is he?
I have no clue. I haven't had any contact with him since the last time I seen him in court, which was 2015.
Was he arrested? Is he walking free? Or you don't know?
I have no idea.
I just imagine if you're abusing children, the punishment can't be, I'm going to take your kids away, you go about your life. Like, there has to be, you would imagine something happened, some sort of punishment.
But within the child welfare system, there's a lot of emphasis on, like, restoration of families and courses and what have you. So I don't think he was criminalized for anything that he did, but I have no idea where he is, but I'm also at peace with not necessarily knowing or like reopening that bandage, or I came to terms with the things that he put me through. There's so many things that I still haven't even, brought to light within myself. It's just one of those things that we keep within the family. So there's a lot of different things that I'm just like, I'd rather not. Like, I try to talk through it with my therapist. I actually need a new therapist because I'm not currently in therapy. But I had an amazing therapist. I got her when I was around like 2020 during the pandemic, and she was just phenomenal. And it was a Black woman. It was my first time with a Black therapist.
Wow.
And I didn't realize how much I needed that. So it was experiencing her. I was like, wow, I actually like therapy. I actually like talking to somebody and feeling like they understand where I'm coming from. My biological mother, I do have communication with. I have forgiven her. I have had conversations and understand that it's not her fault. I think a lot of the times mothers are sometimes put in a position where they're blamed as well. And a lot of the times they're being abused the same time that their children are being abused.
I'm glad you said that, because honestly, the whole time you're telling your story, I was upset with your father, of course, but with your mother also. So it's glad that you are teaching me to have grace and empathy for what you went through, because I just wonder, like, how can a mom stand by and watch that happen to her child? So was your father abusive to her?
Yes. So those were questions that I always asked, like, growing up, like, how could you? How could you? But when I got older, I realized, how could she protect us when she couldn't even protect herself? How could she be a mother where she couldn't even, go about her day to day without it being controlled by somebody, or without, being barricaded and all of the things. Like, I remember like having to leave out of our apartment. You had to go through so many locks. And so it's like it was just a constant, like, almost like you're just barricaded in. So it was a lot that I had to deal with. I think, truthfully, my biological mother probably hasn't come to terms with everything herself. I think now it's kind of more just like we have like a relationship where it's like, hey, and I don't refer to her all the time as my mom, because I am blessed to I have a mom, I have a sister, I have a family that blood cannot make us any closer, and I'm very protective of them. And that's where I really found what true love and stability looks and feels like. I'm so grateful for them. But when I reach out to my biological mother, it's more like a friend rebuild type of relationship, where I still find myself like, you need to do this, or you need to do this. Or it's like, I'm reaching out to you, where it's like, you also could reach out to the children that, that you have. So
what do you want to do
in life? I see myself as being definitely a powerhouse. Well, I consider myself a powerhouse advocate because I have so much conviction in the things that I do. So I see myself being able to touch so many young people and enter different spaces. My main focus is really the youth population, because I feel like a lot of the times our youth in foster care, or even that are not, they lack mentorship. And I would say I am blessed because I have a village of people that seen something in me when I didn't see it within myself. When I didn't understand what my purpose was here on this earth, they saw something in me, and that allowed me to keep going, and it gave me something to fight for beyond myself. And I feel like a lot of times young people, they get sidetracked because they don't have the right mentors in their life. They don't have somebody telling them, hey, you want to be an entrepreneur? This is how you do it. You want to go to law school? This is how you do it. You want to go to trade school? This is how you do it. Because it's also not a one for all fit for everybody.
Yeah,
everybody's trajectory in life is a little bit different. So I feel like once like that is kind of put in place, it kind of helps bridge the gap a little bit.
Yeah.
So I see myself being an attorney. And
well, you said the LSAT, so
yes, an attorney and an advocate on the side. I don't know. I have a lot of like dreams and plans for myself, and I consider myself a visionary because it's almost like I could feel it. Like I just know that like my purpose on this earth is like so much larger than myself.
Yeah.
That sometimes I need to like stay the course, because sometimes I get so caught up in like, oh no, I need to do this because I need to be here. But it's like, just stay the course, stay grounded, and just always remember your why.
I love that.
Just remember your why.
You know, Tyese, I am thinking about when you said you aged out, and I'm just so heavy-hearted thinking about also, so the young kids who are going through abuse, there's that. And then you think about the children who are in foster care, who turn out into the world at 18 with no infrastructure, no support, just go out into society and figure it out.
Right.
What happened to you? I know you went to work for the FBI, but literally, how did you build into this?
Well, shoot. So I went to the FBI and worked there 10 years, organized crime. And then I met this person that worked in television. I was out with friends, and it was the Holyfield fight. Holyfield and somebody, he was fighting. And we went to that person's place, and it had a company, the Heritage Networks, and it was a television syndication company. And I was like, what is that? What do you do? Right? And he was telling me how he buy old films and syndicate them and advertising, you know, all that. And he said, well, what do you do? So I told him, well, I did. And but I couldn't go into detail because, you know, it was very sensitive. So he was like, well, come work with me. And this was like in December. So it was that Saturday I was there. I went back to work that Monday. I put my resignation in and started working in television with him that January. And I never looked back. So I just been, with him, I learned advertising and marketing and PR and writing scripts. Like that, I learned everything there was to know behind the scenes of doing TV. And I just kept going. So anytime we made new shows, I just kept rising in that company. But all the while, just knowing that this is what I'm doing, where I am, is not expected, right? Because growing up in foster care, you're supposed to either be homeless, on welfare, in jail, bunch of kids. That's how they see us, right? So my goal is to just keep pushing. I was in John Jay. I was going to school for forensic psychology. I had my son. I was just pushing because being like, you have to push. I don't know if it's overachieving or if it's survival. You just have to. I can't be without. So I just kept pushing and doing the things that I love to do. I've never regretted not switching. I never regretted switching lanes.
Of course not.
I never regret it. And then just building our company, J City, and just doing all the wonderful shows and doing what we do. But eventually, I do want to have a transition home for young people that do transition out, that do age out, because at the end of the day, Thanksgiving comes every year.
Yeah.
Christmas comes every year, and there's nowhere for them to go. So I want to have a home where every year you coming for Thanksgiving. Come on, like
I will commit here right now to be your first donor.
I appreciate that.
You call me and I got a check to write. It ain't gonna be that much right now, but hopefully, God willing, we will get there. I would love to do that, and I volunteer to come to a Thanksgiving dinner. The first Thanksgiving dinner you host, I will be there. I would love to do that. What would you say, Tawanna's 21, what would you say to your 21-year-old self?
I would say, good job. I would say, keep following your heart. Do whatever it is that you want to do. And if you find out later on, in the middle of it, you're like, I don't know if I like this too much. It's okay to switch gears. Just keep moving. Keep moving. But don't burn yourself out, because I know as growing up in the situation that we've been in, the instinct is to you got to keep moving even if you're tired, because everybody's depending on you, and you got to, like you said, take time for yourself, because self-care is very, very important. I didn't do that at 21.
Yeah.
I didn't do that at 21, but just keep going, but also put yourself first.
Yeah, you deserve that.
You deserve that.
I want you to peer into your future, and you're looking at your 56-year-old self. 56. What would you say to your future self who's 56?
I would say, job well done. You've created a legacy. You have created something that generations could look back on and know that Tawanna did that. Tawanna started that. Tawanna established that. You also showed all your younger siblings that they too could do it, and that you all have amounted to something so much larger than your dreams could have ever imagined. And all of your wildest dreams have come true.
I love that. Don't forget me and Tyese when you get confirmed by the Senate somewhere. We're going to be in the back.
You better come to the politics. You better come to the home. You better come.
You about to have a Black woman at the helm.
That's right.
So let's speak it into existence. Because these conservative MAGA pro-life people, they
pro-life people that are not adopting, not taking foster kids. You see all these women now, like forcing them to have babies, but they're leaving them in restaurants, and
they don't care about these.
They don't care about these kids.
It is about power.
Yes.
It is about power.
Yes.
So you all have I'm gonna be a mess the rest of the day, but you all have moved me in my spirit, and I feel called to be a support to you. And definitely when you start this on whatever whatever you need, I'm always going to be there. But I really do want to, when you move forward with this home, I would love to be there and be supportive.
Yes.
And if there's anything you're doing that I can highlight, I would be honored to be of assistance to you personally or professionally in whatever capacity. Because I think both your testimony is amazing. I want to say again to the people watching at home, even if you know someone who is going through abuse, being quiet about it, shifting aside, saying that's not my business, that is not helpful to children who are being abused. If you know someone who's aging out of the system, maybe you want to extend an invite to your home, welcome them into your family. Community has so much credo with Black folks because we always say that's my play cousin, but that means a lot to us in our family. And we, mother children who we didn't birth. And, even in enslavement, we nurse children we didn't birth while they sold our kids off. So we form family in a lot of different ways. And I'm just honored to be in both your presence and what you survived. And I just want to make a plea to the folks out there to help be part of the solution and not indifferent to the problem. So thank you guys. I might look like a mess. I might look like a raccoon right now because I still look good. So do y'all. So thank you guys for tuning into this episode. Very special episode, near and dear to my heart, across generations on foster care. Please drop a comment if you know resources or just to have thoughts on what we can do to help prepare this system. And hopefully our elected officials will be paying attention. I'm Tiffany Cross, and we'll see you on the next episode of Across Generations.